and welcome to the 19th episode of Ravenna Review, a program of stories, features, and book reviews. My name is Alden Bigelow.
And my name is Robert Boucheron. We will be your hosts for a half hour of reading excerpts aloud with illustrations and author photographs.
The print magazine Ravenna Review is published 4 times a year in Charlottesville, Virginia, on the Rivanna River. The magazine is available in bookstores on the Main Street Mall in Charlottesville and elsewhere in Virginia. You can order a copy or a subscription from the website, which is RivannaReview.com.
Contributors to the magazine live all over the world, and they write about places far and wide. In this episode, we will visit Mallorca, Spain, where a fiery young opera star meets her American father, a grand and creepy Victorian house for rent in Florida, and Atlanta, Georgia, where artists toss their unsold art in a bonfire.
Book reviews are of a posthumous collection of stories by Gene Wolfe and a biography of 4 women who defined the 1960s in America.
At the end, we bring you the news from Hapsburg, a small town in the Shenandoah Valley, about a corner store and its proprietor, Tuffer Gibson. Story, Marquesa, by Tom Eubanks.
Marquesa, my daughter, beautiful Marquesa, stood at the door of my hotel room in Mallorca, raven black hair like her mother's, bobbed at the neck, a part down the middle, a round white face, a brushstroke of Spain in the full black eyebrows accenting her russet brown eyes. She was telling me her name, addressing me as Mr. Mahan, and finished with this.
My assistant called you.
She walked into my room, emanations of confident youth following her, the accent and scent of perfume. I motioned her to the table on the veranda. She sat down, crossed her legs. No greeting. I'd expected an exchange of introductions first, healthy words about home, something to slip us into conversation. I was about to tell her how privileged I was to finally meet her when she told me she'd spent a considerable sum of money to find me, and she had questions. She didn't acknowledge the sweet, delicious esmada on the plate in front of her. Instead, she jumped right in.
I must first honor my mother. She writes to you in English.
She unfolded a letter. Marquesa's expression remained plainly stoic as she read.
Walter, you are not a dear. There is nothing dear about you. I address you only as that, Walter.
Marquesa glanced across the table at me before she continued to read.
My daughter knows who you and where you are. I did not want my daughter to know you. She found you on her own. You do not deserve to know my daughter. Her existence is a gift from God. God used you to give her to me. A tool, Walter. You are a turkey baster. Fill it up and squirt it out. Not even a manly tool, a rarely used kitchen tool. That is who you are, Walter. I am happy not having you in my life. Never contact me. I have a lawyer.
Marquesa looked up, folded the letter, and spoke.
She did not sign it and does not want her name mentioned. If you say her name in my presence, I will leave. Is that understood, Mr. Mahan?
I nodded, but I needed my turn to respond. May I speak?
¿Estás bromeando?
No, I'm not joking, and please speak English.
But you are a grown man. Why are you asking me if you can speak? In your own hotel room, of course you can speak. And why are you living in a hotel?
It's temporary.
That's not an answer.
I know. It's an adjective. Replacing, I was evicted.
Why do you talk like this? Like you are reading. No one talks like this. Speak plainly.
She was out of line saying something like that to me, but I did not respond. She had me on edge, though, and she had me at a disadvantage because I did not want her to leave because before I had my chance to get to know her and to explain.
Tell me what happened to you.
It depends on what you mean by happened. I believed I knew what she meant, but I felt it was unreasonable for her to presume someone wants to instantaneously discuss one of the hardest things they've ever done in their life with one who is rationally a stranger. There should be a modicum of familiarity before I admit possibly to youthful bad judgment. That's what I was thinking at that moment.
25 years and 10 months ago, what happened?
She folded her arms, waiting for me to answer. Story, The Open House by Devara Shaddai. Welcome, friend. You're the last to arrive at the open house. I was about to call it a night and lock up, but please come in. We're a bit hard to see from the road, what with all the magnolia trees and the way that kudzu keeps creeping in every summer. It'd be thick enough to swallow away every timber, nail, and sheet of glass if it weren't for Enrique with his machete and mower. As you can see, the Dudley Platt House is a fine property, 3 stories high with original moldings and marble, save for the roof, which got a lashing about 30 years ago and a real frog strangler. It has brick fireplaces, clawfoot tubs, and lacy gables as fancy as a wedding cake. You won't find one of those old Victorians in better shape in West Florida. Help yourself to some lemonade on the table. The ice is melted down to a mere suggestion, but the lemons come from that tree past those sliding slash windows. Lemons tart enough to turn your tongue around, even with some honey to hold it down. If you want to add a bit of your own flavoring, why, I won't mind. My granny used to keep a flask in her boot for just such occasions. Now, let me show you around. This is the morning room. Not morning as in death, but morning as in forenoon. No one passed in here, and you won't hear of it, any waxy corpses laid out on settees with rings of relatives wailing around them. I know when people come to an old house, they expect stories, but you don't strike me as the kind to take to these sort of tales. Not like those teens who take turns daring themselves to come out here when the leaves change. This was Miss Amelia's sewing room, where she'd spend mornings planning her day. She could sew a stitch better than a surgeon. Her old iron sewing machine is still over there. Go ahead, crank the handle. She made all the comforters and pillows you see, and many more you don't. Those she gave to the war widows and orphans. Miss Amelia won a blue ribbon at the county fair for that pillow in your hand. Don't mind the stain there. Her eyes were milk white in her later years, and she'd jab her fingers purple. Shame that, but the pillow's too pretty to part with. Look at the gold tassel she added, not a single one's missing. Great care has been taken to preserve all the furnishings, as I'm sure you can tell. Do you have any children? Oh, you do. How nice for you. It's been so long since the halls echoed with the laughter of the little ones. You're going to love the nursery. That burlap bear with the button eyes is one of the oldest surviving teddies, named for Theodore. Theodore Roosevelt, of course. Creepy? No, I've never heard that about it before. It's just well-loved and a little worn. You shouldn't let your imagination get the better of you. These shelves with the sailboats on them were made by Mr. Walter, Amelia's husband. And he didn't use a single nail. He was quite handy and built several of the original oak pieces here. Those jars piled on the shelves have enough marbles rattling around in them to rebuild Rome. When the sun from that bay window spills over them, they refract colors on the walls like a kaleidoscope. Everything in here is worth more than a kidney.
Essay, Burning Art by Edward Lineberry. We followed line behind 5 people carrying a papier-mâché effigy on their shoulders, pallbearers at a funeral for unwanted art. Otherworldly sounds from an oboe and a synthesizer accompany us. South River Studios sits at the edge of the city of Atlanta in the Constitution neighborhood of DeKalb County. Nestled behind train tracks at the end of a narrow road with brush creeping in from the sides, the property has the chaotic appearance of a warehouse pretending to be a farm. An energetic dog follows our car as we park in the gravel lot, and a rooster crows unseen. The art scene in Atlanta is vibrant, and the 50 or so people who showed up here tonight talk about what connections they have in the community and which openings or exhibitions they might attend next. Tonight's show is Old Flame, Ceremonial Art Exhibition plus Burning. We mingle in the long hallway of the spacious gallery. Paintings dress the walls, and sculptural pieces sit on pedestals, representing a diverse assembly of styles and mediums. Anything not sold in the next hour will burn. As a writer, I work digitally. My failures exist on my laptop hard drive. I produce very little printed matter, and the scores of notebooks I've written in over the years take up less than a single shelf on a bookcase. For artists who work in more material mediums, old canvases and prints can crowd the artist out of their space, and it can be hard to let go. For those who can, the exhibition provides a vehicle and plenty of encouragement. There's always a chance that the work will sell, though from the looks of the full gallery walls as the procession starts, few sales were made. Most of the artists are gleeful at the prospect of chucking their hard work into the fire. Among the failed technical experiments is older work, paintings the artist outgrew, drawings from a time in their life they would like to forget. One artist burned a diptych portraiture of her ex-best friend. It might not be closure, but it's a step in that direction. Mm-hmm. With the effigy placed atop a pallet as a bier, wood piled underneath, a man steps forward and ignites the wood with an artisanal flamethrower. They do metal work here too. The blaze roars to life and grows to the height of a small building. The circle of observers moves back a step, away from the heat. One by one, people step forward to toss their art onto the pyre. Beneath the full moon, the bonfire makes a perfect backdrop for social media, and the mood is thoughtful, supportive, and festive. A writer, not me, burns a sheaf of papers. They fly into the air on waves of heat and scatter back downwards into the flames. One sheet returns to the ground in front of us. It's blank. My wife, a ceramist, hurls 3 sculptures into the fire. They don't break, and the flames only darken the glaze from purples and greens into muddy blacks and the color of a bog. When the fire cools a few days from now, it's possible that someone could retrieve them unscathed, possible that these works will withstand the heat. But for Jen, they are gone, leaving space and time for new creations. On the drive home along Constitution Road, police cruisers are parked off to the side, their blue lights illuminated but not flashing. They are guarding the construction of Cop City, a legally contested police training center. The fight to prevent Cop City has claimed 1 life, but tonight the neighborhood is quiet. Home to an abandoned prison, movie studios, and 2 prisons still in use, about 15% of the neighborhood is incarcerated. The future Cop City is being constructed on the grounds of Entrenchment Creek Park, where the picnic pavilions and benches are already reduced to heaps of scrap metal. Atlanta has a tendency to burn the wanted and replace it with the unwanted, but tonight the burn was hopeful and restorative.
Book review by Scott Bradfield, The Wolf at the Door, stories by Gene Wolfe. Gene Wolfe, who lived from 1931 to 2019, was an intelligent genre writer who developed a devoted following over his long career. He enjoyed growing popularity with general readers, but it was never the sort of breakthrough success that marked the careers of Isaac Asimov, George R.R. Martin, Ray Bradbury, or even Le Guin. He remained an open secret among his fellow writers who kept an eye out for this always enterprising wolf at their door. If Somerset Maugham is remembered as a writer's writer, Wolfe might be remembered as a genre writer's genre writer. Though best known for his novels, such as the 4-volume series Book of the New Sun, a science fantasy, extrapolation about how much life changes and remains the same at the farthest reaches of time, Wolfe's most adventurous and surprising work is in his numerous stories and novellas. Robinson calculates these to be in the neighborhood of 200 stories and 32 novels. Wolfe's talents are well displayed by this large selection of stories uncollected before his death at age 87, along with several older stories from the slow apprenticeship of his career in the 1960s and 1970s, when he reportedly went 7 years before making his first sale. They show how much he loved exploiting the opportunities of his chosen genre and how he never tired of finding ways out of their constraints, like a sort of narrative daredevil of Houdini with a word processor. For Wolfe, as for many writers, writing stories was an expression of his love of reading them. One of the earliest, briefest stories, Grave Secret, features the sort of comically grotesque conclusion a young man found in the infamous EC comics, such as Tales from the Crypt. It even makes sly reference to the Necronomicon, invented by H.P. Lovecraft, and Wolfe's witches, the little stranger, and ghostly occupiers, the gunner's mate, create their own unique horrors while recalling childhood fascinations with pirate sagas and classic fairy tales. This collection includes several adventures of Wolfe's version of An Armchair Sleuth, Pitney Phillips. A couple of them appeared in the old Mike Shane Mystery Magazine. Phillips' crime-solving expertise seems largely that of a collector of World War II weaponry and miniature soldiers. In every story, Wolfe displays a respect for the different genres he chooses to inhabit, however briefly. It is in the science fiction short story, especially novella length, that Wolfe excelled, such as Memorare, concerning several interplanetary and perhaps intertemporal tomb readers, news documentarians hopping around the lunar orbits of Jupiter. One of the most entertaining aspects of Wolfe's fictions is his ability to deploy age-old generic ideas in new ways without the sort of boring exposition that deadens much of the golden age science fiction that Wolfe was raised on. In one of his most well-regarded early books, a triptych of novellas published as the fifth head, If Cerberus, Wolfe imagines into existence a distant, in both time and space, future society where cloned humans are hard to distinguish from the native shapeshifters they colonized. And in one of the oldest stories recovered here, Mountains Like Mice, from a 1966 issue of, if perhaps a riff on the Hemingway title, Hills Like White Elephants, Wolfe takes readers to a far future Martian colony in which a religious community finds its way through the alien landscape by means of half-forgotten rituals. Sometimes Wolfe's characters puzzle out the weird meaning of their worlds for themselves. Other times the reader feels obliged to puzzle it out for them.
Book review by Yvonne Surette, Women Who Invented the 60s, History by Steve Golin. The American 1960s can seem like an exotic time zone in a faraway land, but Women Who Invented the 60s brings them into sharp and immediate focus. Meticulously researched and detailed, it profiles 4 women whose activism built important political movements. Ella Baker, Jane Jacobs, Betty Friedan, and Rachel Carson did not invent the 60s, and the author never really pushes that idea. Instead, he says that their interventions defined the environmental, feminist, and civil rights movements. Golin uses books, articles, speeches, and interviews to present rich portraits of the women. The book is divided into 3 parts: the 50s, the interventions, and the 60s, tracing the changes that came about in American society from one decade to another. Golin was inspired to write the book from a Rebecca Solnit article, 3 Who Made a Revolution, about Jacobs, Carson, and Friedan, but he considerably widened her scope and included Ella Baker. Baker was a major player in civil and human rights groups. She was involved in the formation of 3 groups: the NAACP, the SCLC, which was formed during the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, and the SNCC. The acronyms stand for the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Golin describes in great detail Baker's journey as secretary of the NAACP through towns across the South to convince ordinary people to join the movement. Her gift lay in forming coalitions, in getting people to use their own talents to resist discrimination and forge equality among all Americans. Ironically, Baker faced discrimination because she was a woman, even though among male counterparts in the movement. Because of this, in 1960, she left SCLC to form the new group SNCC after the Greensboro, North Carolina Woolworth lunch counter protests. Golin's scholarship on Baker is the most riveting because she is not well known. His research brings her story to life. Jane Jacobs has been called the architect of modern life. She was born and raised in Scranton, moved to New York City in 1935, and wrote for magazines, notably Architectural Record. While living with her husband in Greenwich Village, she wrote The Death and Life of Great American Cities, published in 1961. Her leadership in the fight to stop an expressway slated to go through Washington Square not only preserved a landmark, but paved the way for other environmental victories in cities all over America. Rachel Carson, a marine biologist and writer, fought against what government leaders and corporations thought of as progress. Carson's famous battle, which in 1962 engendered the important book Silent Spring, was waged against powerful chemical companies whose pesticides, particularly DDT, caused a mass death of birds and other animals. At first, she and others were dismissed as alarmist bird watchers, but Carson gained respect because of impeccable research and proof that chemicals in pesticides also posed a cancer threat to humans. DDT was later banned. Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, published in 1963, sparked what is called the second wave of feminism in the United States. The book examines what she saw as growing but mostly unrecognized unease and malaise amongst married upper-class mothers and housewives. Her research focused mostly on white college-educated women, but it brought to life how damaging the assumptions of the 50s truly were to a woman, that a woman's chief attainments in life were motherhood and marriage. A good editor would have eliminated some repetition and grammatical errors, but these faults do not lessen the important achievements the book documents.
This is news from Habsburg, the corner store.
The corner store is a landmark where Main Street turns to cross Quickquid Creek. It's on the ground floor of an old brick building with a Flemish gable and a turret at the corner. You can't miss it. The store stocks convenience items, ordinary things you use all the time. It also has a unique collection of commercial and advertising art, metal signs, objects, and cartoon characters like Mr. Peanut, Little Debbie, Tony the Tiger, and the Morton Salt Girl. The star of the collection is Harry the Hot Dog. Molded in polyurethane and brightly painted, Harry stands 5 feet tall in the plate glass window. Wearing only a bun, the winsome wiener squirts mustard on his head and licks his lips. The proprietor is Christopher Tuffer Gibson, son of Dell Gibson, who started the store in 1977 and is no longer with us. Tuffer is in his 30s, tall and lean, with serious brown eyes and a shock of black hair. He has the look of an entrepreneur, yet he insists he has no business plan, no talent for sales, and no delusion he will strike gold.
I'm the most ordinary person you will ever meet. I never ran with the gang, partied all night, or got high on illegal substances. I did play sports like any normal, healthy boy. As a responsible adult, I'm perfectly content to mop a floor, restock a shelf, or total a day's receipts.
At 1,000 square feet, the store is small, but it stocks 1 or 2 of everything: a roll of toilet paper, a 60-watt light bulb, a can of soup, a little packet of trick candles for a birthday cake that relight when you blow them out.
If you don't see it, speak up. It's probably in a box in back or misplaced by an absent-minded customer who came in for a bag of chips and got distracted.
Gibson grew up a few blocks away. As a teenager, he worked afternoons and Saturdays in the store under the eye of his father.
Dell taught me useful skills, but more important, good habits. Wipe up a spill before it turns tacky. People like a clean store. Keep regular hours. People want to know if you're dependable. Lock the door when you leave, even if it's only for a minute. People are nosy.
Tuffer attended the Habsburg public schools. He was an average student, he says.
I completed assignments and passed the standardized tests. I wasn't a big reader. The only subject I was good at was math. I liked getting the right answer.
He played tuba in the marching band in the green and gold uniform and plumed busby hat.
The band needed a tall boy in the rear to support the big brass bell and stay in step and keep a steady beat. Pa, pa. That was me.
He went on to Quidnunc Community College, where he earned a 2-year degree in business administration. He then worked in human resources for companies in Richmond, Charlotte, and Raleigh. A member of the Society of Human Resource Management, he still subscribes to HR Magazine to keep up with trends in the field.
You never know when you might have to pick up the ball.
While Tuffer was away from home, chasing a dream of business administration, Dale Gibson suffered a heart attack. Dale recovered, but was feeble and short of breath, attached to an oxygen tank. He leased the store to a stranger, and the business deteriorated. The lease was not renewed. The store sat empty for a year.
By then, I was going nowhere and ready for a change. One of the apartments upstairs was vacant. That's where I live now. It's a short commute, door to door. I left the big city for a small town, the one where I grew up, and I traded the rat race for minding the store.
When he arrived, the retail space was in bad shape. How much would it cost to fix? The family talked about leasing it as a luncheonette or a coffee shop.
I wanted to save it as a corner store, not as it was, but a new improved version.
Using his own savings and sweat equity, he renovated. From the minute it reopened, the corner store was busy. Gibson attributes success to pent-up demand.
For all the architecture and old-style ambience, the historic district had no mom-and-pop store, no fast food. People were forced to drive outside or walk half a mile to George's IGA on Metzger Road. I can't tell you how many times someone walked in, looked around, and sighed with relief.